Hello, me again. This time, not a madcap experiment, but I've been asked in Second Yellow Card's Discord channel about my scouting method for my MTK save. Now, as a bit of background fill-in, Second Yellow Card, on his Twitch, YouTube, and on his Discord, he has a save in Hungary, building a nation with MTK Budapest so that Hungary becomes the best league in Europe. I've been using the exact same save file as him in order to basically go on the same journey. However, we have slightly different scouting methodologies. He goes through each individual team's youth academy and just gets team reports and constantly is cycling them through, while I am lazy and use recruitment focuses, which he hates. However, I've seemingly found a way to get them working. So one thing I do need to caveat from the start here is I have a lot of scouts. 28 to be precise, covering pretty much the whole globe, apart from Oceania, because I need some more in Australia. However, I've got a lot of green. The more green you have, the better this works. The more scouts you have, the better this works. But scalably, this should still work for pretty much any save, albeit I would say a lower League England save, maybe less so. So what do I do, essentially? Well, I surprisingly only have 6 recruitment focuses active at the moment, but the way they cycle around seems to keep giving me plenty of talent. So I'm going to sort of run through each of them a little bit because they all have their own slight quirks. This isn't a perfect art, you can adjust these as much as you want. This is just a few tips and tricks that I've found seem to help me with the process. So this one I have highlighted at the moment, which is the one that's the latest one to be cycled through, so to speak. The first thing that I do is select any position from tactic, select it as any tactic, choose a role, all roles. Because you put any in this top corner in terms of tactic, it means that every single potential role is included. Yes, you may be looking for a specific player for your tactic, and that's what the recruitment focuses were there for. But if you're purely looking for worldwide talent and you just want high potential players to be able to send out to loan farms or just to be able to bring through your own academy, you kind of don't need to be picky about position. You just want everyone and anyone. Any player can be retrained, essentially. So I look here for transfer preferences. A star rating between 5 grey stars, which means that you pretty much capture anyone who's been through a youth intake at a decent club, up to, I've got 4.5 star potential here. Now, you can put that to 4, you can put it to 3.5 technically. However, you really want it to be kind of high so that you get the potential ones. Also, so that you weed out some of the absolute chaff. But it doesn't mean that every player that you get through this is going to be 4.5 star potential. As you can see down here, a lot of these guys aren't. Carrying on, I've got the age set between 15 and 18 because essentially I want 18 and under because of Champions League requirements, so that if they bring them in at 18, they've got a chance to become homegrown at club or homegrown at nation if they go out on loan to help the quota. So that's the intention there. Leave that as ongoing. Assign the scouts, I just click assign any scout, and the game will naturally then populate that section for you over time. I don't have any further details on this one, but I do on others. But when I hit confirm on there, go back to it, which is this one at the bottom, you can see in the in progress, so the scouts periodically seem to chuck 50 players in there who are 18 and under, who they found throughout their various scouting, who they want to analyse. Now, what you put in as your preferences is what they will recommend, and that's what a lot of people look at. I jump the gun, and I'm always looking at in progress. I'm trying to jump in first. So these 2 guys here, I just report, get a week-long scout report, add them to my youth shortlist. And then I will come back and look at them later. They then go into my pile. But look, 2 players, potentially 4.5 star, both relatively cheap as well. But looking at these 2, a B- and a C-. Anyone who is, I've seen D-rated players come out really good from this. So don't be, worried by some of the numbers. So the next one I'm going to look at is the 15 to 17 one, because this is where I need to show you why it's different. Same settings on the left-hand side. I've slightly reduced the potential on the right-hand side just because if you do lower it down, it captures more players. But I've reduced the age to 17, and that reduces the pool, obviously. And that's important because when you search at 15 to 18, you tend to only get 18-year-olds. You get the odd 17-year-old. Whereas if you do it like this, you're getting more 17-year-olds than the odd 16. So you'll see there's another one that's 15 to 16. And again, you're going to be getting people who pretty much just joined the youth academy. And you're going to be able to see higher potential players in there. And you're going to have 50-ish put into the in progress one for each one of those every time the scouts go and do a run. I haven't got too many scouts assigned to individual players at the moment, which means that they can just take anyone that comes on this list. Boom, I've got someone already there. Within a week, you've probably got a good idea if they're going to be good or not. So, again, the same settings. Now, this obviously means that they could come out at any price, and they could come out at any ability. So in this case, I haven't got anyone particularly interesting because 4-star potential and some of it's white, I'm not too bothered. If it's into 4.5-star territory, then I will scout them. But so far, no. But earlier, this scout method brought me this guy who, scouting in progress at the moment, Thomas Camargo. I mean, look at him. He's a pressing forward and enthusiastic, but he looks like he's going to be pretty decent and not cost the earth either. So, yeah. And the 15 to 16 one as well, just to show you. Just 15 to 16. Same range, same positional situation. However, they are, again, if I click the right one, all going to have been different results. None of these guys showed up in either of the previous ones. Yet, look, 3 massive potential guys. Not over expensive. I mean, Ivan here, £375,000 release clause because the Spanish League is weird. The Spanish League forces every player to have a release clause, and when they're young, it's stupidly cheap because they can't realise potential. So you can steal them. I say steal them though, they are able to then sign new contracts at their clubs, and quite often do, but occasionally it does slip through the net. You sometimes do have to offer them a better contract for them to join you though, but you've got to make sure you're willing to make that commitment. Ivan Cruz here as well, and Mikel Marizarena, who looks pretty damn solid as well for 6 million. So that's 15 to 18, 15 to 17, 15 to 16. So the age 18 one is slightly different because I have it just set to 18-year-olds because they are going to be the most developed players and hopefully have a better idea on potential. But when they are slightly older, you actually want them to have a better current ability so that you know they're going to develop, because having an 18-year-old who is 1-star current, 5-star potential isn't often going to hit the 5th star just because of time. So I tend to look for 2-star current ability, 4.5-star potential players here, and then it will chuck up a few good players at the same time. But these players are good enough to start potentially for some of the other teams in your league, or in my case when I'm playing against one of the also-rans and I just want to keep the youths a run out, or in the cup, for example. That one doesn't have any at the moment because I've just recently set it up. So we have the 15 to 16, 15 to 17, 15 to 18, and 18 only. The reason these two are different, as I say, is because of the current ability. And again, it's all about, they're only going to bring 50 into this in-progress stuff at once, and not always all in one clump, so to speak. Sometimes they'll go quiet for months. However, the more players they put in here, the better, but they do not overlap. So you are getting different 18-year-olds in each of these categories. So the South America one differs by me actually adding South America as an area, because we know that Brazil and Argentina tend to chuck a bunch of talent out all the time. So I specifically narrow it down to them. Again, that's just been on a roll round recently, so that's having a bit of a reset. Occasionally you do have to basically set them again, especially if you change your tactic, you need to change it again to make sure it is capturing all players, or the specific tactic you're working on. When you add a new tactic, sometimes it thinks you want players to fit that new tactic, so you've just got to keep an eye on it. Now this last one is the one that I used at the very beginning of the save, because boy was it useful. So this is my sub 2.5 million level. So when we weren't quite so rich, and generally when we were rich and we were just looking for players for the loan farm, I managed to do the same settings again, 5 grey star minimum ability, 4-star potential, 15 to 18, so it covers all the bases, all areas ongoing, all positions. However, if you go in further details, you can set the transfer value by going to add, go to transfer value, is at least or is at most, is between. So I go is at most 2.5 million. Now originally when we had very little money, I would put at most 1 million, for example. You set that as a parameter. You'll notice as well there's a lot of other things you can narrow it down by in here. So you can look for contract expiring players, you can look for people who are on low wages, you can look at the wage ones, you can go by work permits, you can even look for someone who is 6'5" or above, which is one I did once upon a time for defenders, and boy was Thomas van Mil brilliant for another Hungarian team. However, when you go through this, the 2.5 million one, I have 21 currently in progress. Now, annoyingly, I've already scouted a bunch of them. They're already in the scout list, so there are no good players here. But you'll see the massive variety of clubs that suddenly turn up. You've not got your Barcelonas and your Real Madrids, because they're going to cost more than 2.5 million, I'm sorry to say. Apart from that Sevilla guy we showed you earlier, but that's different. We're getting people from all sorts of different areas of the world. You've got Peru here with Melgar, you've got the Czechia, you've got Ukraine, Scotland, Israel. You've got all sorts of different clubs. Eintracht Frankfurt, but it's their second team. It's scouring the world essentially for different ones, and I end up with a list a bit like this. This is, by the way, the SAS23 skin, which is amazing, and if you want more information, should be in the link below in the description on YouTube. But important factors here. Again, I have my own scouting view here so that I can see the age, and I specifically am interested in the date of birth, because if they then turn 19 before the next transfer window opens, I can't get homegrown at Nation or homegrown at Club, which then suddenly devalues them in my team. But I've sorted mine currently by potential. You can see their wages roughly, and some of them you can see wage demands if you ask the agents, and their transfer values. Now, one of my habits is I go transfer value, the shortest, and then start asking agents. Just click on them, say I'm very interested, there's no easy way to put this, but the demands are too high, stall. No one ever bats an eyelid, doesn't change whether they're interested or not, but the stalling means that they're not expecting you to put a bid on them and they don't start harassing you. Yes, they will occasionally ask about it if they're very interested, but what you get their personality, you get an updated transfer value if they are South American specifically as well, because a lot of the time the value that the scout gets is shorter than the value that the club wants, but the agent has a better idea than the scout. And you get a slightly more updated wage demand. And you also understand how interested they are. If you then click on slightly interested, it will actually show up their demands here, so that you can keep an eye on what wage they want, how much the team wants, and try and get the narrative on how interested they are. If I find a South American quickie, so Hasler Kurtzar here, 550 to 1.2 million. If I ask his agent now, he says he's not interested because he's either recently signed a contract. Yeah, because he's recently signed a contract. Sometimes they're not interested because they're too young to move across. Sometimes they've just signed new contracts. Sometimes they're just not sure they're going to get the playing time, and then they ask for star player and you tell them to get lost. Either way, what I showed you earlier, when you get a player who is 5-star potential or higher, chuck them into a shortlist and go down, ask the agent, find all the data out that you can, and then when you sort it by potential, you can just let the scouts roll through. Important, keep scout reports up to date up here going, as long as you have the scouting budget to do it. I'm in fact going to up my scouting budget ever so slightly to make sure it covers it. I've got 204 million in the transfer budget. I think I can afford a few 100,000, can't I? But anyway, anyone who now falls below 4.5 stars of potential, white or yellow stars, I just remove from the list. You just work through asking the agents to get as much data as possible, and you'll end up with a list that looks a bit like this, and then it's just picking them off by what you want. You look by position, what are you after, judge it by personality, judge it by how much money you want to spend. wage demands is a bit more sort of wide open sometimes. The other thing that I use often is the interested in transfer button, because as you can see, my list is 37 players, but when you click it, only 27 are really interested. If you then change it to doubtful, it goes up to 31. Those people who are doubtful will probably ask for much higher squad status than they actually are. Some of them will get talked out of it. Some of them you won't care because they will be on loan at another club and probably get that playing time. But some of the others will kick up a fuss. Don't worry about that. Well, it's up to you if you want to worry about it, basically. I tend to be kind of reasonably blasé about it, but if they're asking for regular starter when they are 1.5-star current ability, I will take exception. So that's kind of the scouting system in a nutshell, and it's probably not the best time to be showing this, but it was just because now was the time the question was asked. But even just these 6, I do have a few more for Hungarians, Switzerland, because second nationality, I love, and a few other things that I'm experimenting at the moment that Matt's told me about. Means that these keep flicking through. Sometimes one of them will not have anything for months, and you think you've probably got to reset it. But usually, some of the wider ranging ones, the 15 to 16, 17, and 18 ones specifically, will just keep churning players out. So you just keep adding to the youth list and seeing what you like, really. But that's all I've got on scouting front. But hopefully that's been insightful and answers a few of the questions. Any more questions about the MTK save as a whole, just comment down below or find me on Second Yellow Cards Discord channel in the general chat thread. I spend a lot of time there, I have to admit. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon.